And welcome to a brand new episode of Match Points here on tennismajors.com, where we come to debate and discuss the hottest topics in tennis. And once again, look at our lovely panel. Everybody's back in place, including the 2013 Wimbledon champion, broadcaster, tennis great, and mother, Marion Bartoli. Also with us once again, tennis writer, the New York Times and elsewhere, host of the No Challenges Remaining podcast, Mr. Ben Rothenberg, badly in need of a haircut from what it appears. It's getting very rock and roll.
Yeah, I've been rock and roll all my life, Josh. You should know that. It's just now showing on the outside.
We could tell. We could tell. And returning once again, the president of the International Tennis Writers Association, contributor to ESPN, The Guardian, and now to tennismajors.com, Mr. Simon Cambers. All right, gang, let's get started. And we will with the return of Roger Federer. So I ask you, question number one, how good was the Roger Federer that we saw in Doha? And just how far away is he from peak Federer performance? How good was he and how far away is he? And let's begin with rock star Ben Rothenberg.
So peak, let's remember what peak Federer was. Peak Federer was like winning 3 Grand Slams a year and being number one and being untouchable. So he's not really that close to that. Let's be honest. None of the big three, honestly, are really near their peak right now. By those sorts of definitions. But I do think it was not bad, for sure, what he did. He won a tough match against Evans and then lost a close match against Basilashvili. He hasn't played in a very long time, so he's definitely be graded on a curve. He was certainly happy with his performance. I think he met and exceeded his own expectations. It's just tough to know really where he goes from here because it's tough to know what his schedule will be like. It's tough to know how he'll be able to do at Wimbledon, which is his spoken target tournament with a sort of sporadic preparation before it. So I don't know entirely how to calibrate expectations for Roger, just because I think there's so little data and we're not going to get a lot more data very soon.
All right, Marion Bartoli, same question. How good was the Federer we saw and how far is he from the peak that he can be once again?
To the lack of matches, of course, and due to a fitness problem as well. And in Doha, the way he was able to just, stay in the moment, he really didn't show any frustration. That was something it's not easy to do, especially after being out of the competition for just so long. When you're rushed off matches, sometimes you can get a little bit mad during the match when you can't really perform the same level as the practice. And he didn't show that at all. I think he was there to just evaluate where it was, what was missing in his game. And I think he have made the assessment pretty early on, probably even during his first match, that he was needed more fitness, that the matches was require him to be even more prepared at what he is right now. And that's probably why he has added some matches and added some tournaments on his schedule on clay, especially because he really wants to win Wimbledon. That's his major priority for this year. And of course, after that, the Olympics. But I think what is very impressive with Roger is every time he's able to come up with something that's going to help him to become even better. And he's able to assess any situation as it is. And of course, he has been able to win so many things in the past, but he is almost able to forget that and just focus on the moment and what he needs right now to be back to the level he considers he should play to be able to give himself a chance to win a Grand Slam. And that is something incredibly difficult to do when you're playing. That's normally more the team around you that is able to help you realize what is lacking, what is missing when you're playing. But he seems to be able to almost take a distance when he plays and figure out exactly how he feels and what is lacking. And it was clear during his match that, of course, after one set, he was struggling, especially physically, that it was hard for him to keep up with the intensity, that the second set, he was having a sort of a collapse, and then he was starting to rebound to the third. That happened against Evans in the first round, happened again against Basilashvili. He had a match point against Basilashvili, was able to close out the match, but he was close there. But every time after that first set, he's having a dip in the second. So that's probably due to the lack of matches, of course, and due to a fitness problem as well. And what is incredible, he's able to assess that himself and then find a solution or try to find a solution to correct that.
All right, Simon, how good was he, and how close are we to the peak that he can become once again?
I think he's probably 50% away from his peak. I mean, he's half as good as he was, maybe just in that pure moment. But I was impressed. I mean, I thought he played pretty well, especially against Evans. I thought his footwork was dynamic, which was probably something that he wasn't sure it would be in the first match. As Marion said, he competed really well. I mean, you've got to remember he had that match point against Basilashvili in the second one. So, I mean, I would even with the 3 days in a row playing, I probably would have picked him to beat Taylor Fritz. I think he would have found a way to get past him. But I thought he served well. In general, it was good to see him back. It's a pleasure to see him play just the way he plays. Everyone knows his style. I think, when you're assessing where Federer is, you've got to listen to him as well. I mean, he's not hiding too much. He said, didn't he, as a couple of weeks before, when he was playing sets against Dan Evans in practice, he wasn't even sure he could handle him then. So he made big leaps pretty quickly. I think what we're going to see over the next few months is him doing the same thing again. He's made a smart move to go back to practice, because what's the point in showing up in Miami or something and losing early and then having to travel again? He may as well stick in one place, get himself ready, and then use clay for the base in his legs, for the fitness in his legs that will help him come Wimbledon. And everyone knows that Wimbledon is his best chance. It stands to reason. He's won there 8 times. Would be absolutely amazing if he won 9. The whole thing reminds me a little bit, looking back in history, at Ken Rosewall trying to win Wimbledon at 39. Unfortunately, he came up against Jimmy Connors, who smashed him in the final. So maybe Federer will have better luck. But I think the key for him will be getting as fit as he possibly can. He did get his movement was just exposed a little bit, which is very unusual in those second and third sets in those matches. But he came through against Evans, almost made it against Basilashvili. I don't see any problem with his motivation. I think we're looking at Federer being around for a while yet, which is great. And I think, more positives than negatives.
All right. Well, let's stay with Roger then and continue. Cedric, our producer, wanted me to ask you, was it a mistake of Roger to skip both Dubai and Miami and do so without providing details? Was that a mistake? And let's stay with you, Simon. Let's pick up right with you first.
In terms of providing details, I mean, I don't think he has to. We talked about transparency in terms of injuries before. I don't think that's a thing in this case. If we're talking about the relationship with tournament directors and the way you sort of say you're going to play 1 week and then not, that is maybe a problem. But this is somebody who's been there and done an awful lot for the tour over 20 plus years. I think he's allowed to make a couple of late decisions in terms of his schedule. And, at this stage of his career, he has got to get it right. He's been very smart about his schedule, really, for the last 10 years or so, maybe more. And no one would begrudge him picking and choosing the tournaments he wants to do, even if it's at a very late stage. I think he doesn't really owe anyone anything. When he does show up, he wants to be at his absolute best. And I think in terms of playing Dubai or playing Miami, he had to weigh that up against what he would get out of it, as opposed to training a little bit harder for a training block now, when this could be the only opportunity he gets to have a proper training block over the next 3-4 weeks before he has to go into a crowded schedule across the spring and summer. So I didn't see it as a surprise, really.
All right, Ben, same question. Was it a mistake?
I don't know if it was a mistake, but I was surprised he pulled out of Miami. I thought Miami was a tournament that would make sense for him to play. A Masters level event with days off in between a lot of matches. It's kind of the closest thing to a Grand Slam you could get in terms of preparation, in terms of, and it's far enough away from Wimbledon, where he wants to peak, that he could really kind of exert a lot of energy, I think, at Miami and get some practice going on a deep run potentially at a tournament with no real downside to it. Whereas on the clay, I don't think he really necessarily wants to be peaking on the clay or do especially well on the clay or get a lot of matches on the clay. Clay is the most grueling surface for him. It's his least favorite surface for him. It has the least to do with grass in terms of play style. So I was a little surprised by the Miami decision, I got to say. I just thought that'd be a nice tournament for him to play and then to take some time off, maybe all the way until the grass. I'm not sure why clay is really being the targeted training ground when the Miami was right there.
All right, Marion, same question then. Was it a mistake? Well, it proved to be a mistake for Roger to have skipped both of those and do so without any details or explanation.
I don't think so. I think actually, in any decision as Roger is taking, he probably almost never took a bad decision over the course of his career. I think right now in Dubai, obviously living here, I know it's getting extremely hot. So if he's able to practice outdoor for the next 3 weeks or 1 month, he's going to get really, really fit because, you you have to play by 35 degrees plus, and it's really humid as well. And I think the clay, actually for him, it's not about the matches, it's just about the fitness as you play a match. And obviously clay will require him to play longer rallies. And that's what you need when you have been out of the court for so long. Your muscle needs some sort of memories back in order to perform at his best on the surface, of course, that suits him the best, which is grass. But you need to have those minutes into your legs to be able to transit that into the grass. And I think for him, the clay court will be actually the perfect way to get those muscles back to work into difficult situations, stressful situation. And of course, it's not going to be the best surface. Of course, we don't expect him to win massive events there, but I think the time he will spend there will help him. And he said it, to strengthen his muscle and to strengthen his legs in match situation, which is what he needs as well. Because as much as you try to practice, as much as you try to repeat those difficult moments and stressful moments, there is nothing that can replace a match with something on the line. And I think that is why, probably the reason why he thought, well, if I'm playing Miami and I skip the clay court season, I'm going to be out again for 2 months or a month and a half without any matches. Then I have to arrive on grass, having to peak straight away. And he doesn't probably want to add that extra pressure to himself. And therefore he wants to get, week in and week out, some sort of competition to be able to peak when Wimbledon will arrive.
All right, Simon, you wanted to challenge earlier. Go right ahead.
Yeah, it's not really a challenge. It's it's just something that I think we ought to remember, is that Federer likes traveling with his family when he can, and this way means that he can just base himself in Europe, keep all his wife and his kids close by. He can jet home or pop across the border much more easily than he can if he's trying to travel around elsewhere as well. So I think in that sense, it didn't make that much of a surprise.
Okay, so let's stay on this. Let's stay with Roger. He clearly stated his goal 100% is Wimbledon, but we must ask, would skipping Roland-Garros actually be a good idea or a bad idea? All things considered, would skipping the French be a good idea or a bad idea? Ben, you go first.
I think it depends on how much he plays before the French. Like if let's say he wins Rome or something crazy, then which he's never won before, so I'm sure it'd be a very exciting moment for him if he wins Rome. Then yeah, you probably don't need to play the French Open if really the goal is. Although at that point, then you've won Rome, and so maybe you're going to win the French Open too. Who knows? It's all hypothetical. It's probably too soon to say. I don't think he's going to have a problem with peaking too early there, and because he's very good at managing himself and not really making bad decisions, as Marion said. I mean, it's very good decision making. And also, let's remember the last time Roger played the French Open in 2019, he hadn't played it in a long time. He made the semifinals because the rest of the tour, compared to the big three, is just not very good right now. So he can show up there and win some matches and be just fine potentially. All
right, Simon, same question. Good idea or bad idea to skip Roland-Garros?
I think Ben is right that it depends on how many matches or how many tournaments he decides to play before Paris. I think it also depends whether he wants to go straight into Halle, or he wants to play Stuttgart before, or whatever the grass court tournament is before Halle, and then on to Wimbledon. If he wants to do that, then I would imagine that probably not playing Roland-Garros will be the wisest move. But I expect him to play two tournaments before Roland-Garros on clay, so it's a 50-50. I don't think it's not like the same situation as an Ivan Lendl trying to skip Roland-Garros to win Wimbledon at the end of his career, when that was just purely because that was the only way he thought he could do it. I think Federer will just make the best decision that for him at the time and for his fitness and his body. But I do think the clay will be an important factor in building that strength for Wimbledon.
All right, Marion, same question. Good idea, bad idea?
I'm really on the same page as the guys. I think it will depend also how physically he feels after each match. I mean, let's remember, he's getting 40 this year. Things are not getting easier for him. And I think he will see how he's feeling week in and week out. And that's probably why he had scheduled at the beginning to play Dubai and Miami, to give himself some chances. He feels after Doha he really can't do it, and it's not a wise move, then he is taking those tournaments off his calendar. Probably he will schedule Roland-Garros. And then depending on what happens before, depending if he feels like, it's not a smart move to go there, because he might feel again some pain into his body, or because he might feel like he will damage his grass court season, then will take a decision. I think probably he will schedule it to start, and then depending on how every single one is evolving, and the matches and the results and the fields, everything that puts into the mix, what is the best decision for him. But I sincerely think that if he comes to Paris, plays well, reach the final four, which for him, I think it's a good result, then he will give himself the best chance to win Wimbledon. And we saw it when he made the final four in Roland-Garros. He got match point against Novak to win Wimbledon. He was really so close to get it.
All right, and staying with Roger Federer, as quoted by our own Simon Cambers in a tennismajors.com story, quote, "My concern is more my own health over the record, to be honest," end quote. So I ask you all, is Roger being completely honest with us?
Well, I think he has the record, of course, somewhere in his mind. I think he wants to stay at the top of the Grand Slam category, especially. I think that counts a lot into his records. He got to 20, of course, the first one. I think he wants to stay there at the top of the pyramid. He already got beaten on the number one of the weeks at number one in the world, by Novak Djokovic, and I don't think he wants to lose all his records. But of course, you have to take in consideration his health, and probably he's not going to put his total body on the line just based on one record. He has achieved enough, and obviously he's one of the greatest of the game that ever played. But is the record somewhere in his mind? I truly think so.
All right, Ben, is he being completely honest with us?
I think he's probably given up on the record because I think Roger's pretty smart. I think that he's gotten to hold this record for most Grand Slams ever since 2009, since he passed Sampras at Wimbledon 2009 by winning his 15th. And so that's a nice, going on 12 years, if you want to count this sort of co-holding it with Nadal, 12 years and counting with this record. I think that's a lot. I think that's great. I think he's enjoyed that time very much. And I think he recognizes that it can come to an end and it's not really within his control. Like the number one weeks, I think we all agree that Roger knows he's not getting that back. He's not getting back to number one. He's not going to be able to play the schedule to get back to number one in the rest of his career. Similarly, I think he knows that Djokovic is going to outlast him and that Djokovic is winning at a great rate and will almost certainly pass 20 and maybe even get to 22, 23, whatever the Djokovic's number winds up being. We have no idea. I don't think that's something that Federer would want to waste a lot of energy focusing on because it's really not within his capabilities or control. And I think he just wants to enjoy the good times he had. And 12 years holding the record is pretty darn good there. All
right, Simon, you wrote the piece for tennismajors.com. Do you believe he's being completely honest when he says that?
Yeah, I think he's honest because the two things go hand in hand. If he stays healthy, he's got a shot at winning another Grand Slam. I mean, you've got to look at what he said about he wants to be able to play sports with his kids, go skiing with his children, and he doesn't want to end up sort of sitting in a chair and unable to get up and run around the garden with them. It's a way of life for him. I think Ben's totally right. Federer is amazing at sort of dropping these little things into what he says when he says, maybe now, for me, it was when I was chasing down Pete, that was really important. Now I'm in that situation, maybe it's not as crucial for me. He takes the pressure off himself really well in those ways and also just reminds everyone how great he was and is and has been and all the titles he's won. I just think he has bigger fish to fry. If he's fully healthy, he can win another Grand Slam, perhaps. 9 Wimbledons would be a great record to equal Martina Navratilova. 21 would give him a shot at staying on top. I mean, throughout his whole career, he's wanted to win Wimbledon and be number one every year until the last few when it's not been necessarily possible. They're the ones he really cared about. Now, of course, you've got the Olympic gold medal thrown in there as another carrot that he's chasing. But I think, in first and foremost, he knows that if he doesn't stay healthy, he's got no shot.
All right, Ben, counterpoint.
Well, I was just going to say I think the defining thing for me with Federer in context of this is I think Federer is extremely secure in his career and his achievements and everything about what it has meant to be Roger Federer all this time. I don't think he's in the least bit desperate to sort of prove himself on any level. He's already got it all. He's already got, obviously, probably $1 billion at this point, roughly. Is Roger Federer a billionaire? Is his investigation maybe worth doing? But yeah, he's doing just fine, and I really don't think that he's somebody which is different than a Djokovic, who I think still feels the need to prove something, or then maybe even like a Serena, who I think still feels the need to prove something. I think Federer is happy and content, and so I don't think that he's going to really lose sleep in any sort of long-term way over
but
records.
Do you get the sense that, of course, it's all contingent upon the health, but do you get the sense he's downplaying the record, understanding that, well, I can't control those guys coming up right now, let's focus on this. He's saying the right things, but in his heart of hearts, do you believe that he would very much like to own this, Ben? No?
Oh, I mean, he's a competitor, obviously, and a great champion. Obviously, they all want to be the best, and and he's been in that conversation for sure. I'm sure he would just as happily have Novak and Rafa not win any more Grand Slams and hang on to the record, sure. But I think he also knows realistically how good those guys are, and that's maybe not something that's going to happen.
All right, remember, folks, you can read more all about all of these stories and subjects right here at tennismajors.com. Marion, Ben, Simon, thank you as always. And everyone, thank you for watching. Be sure to follow on all social media platforms. And we will see you next time for more match points right here on tennismajors.com.